All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this artist information meeting for the Blanche Nixon Percent for Art project. Thank you for joining us. I'm Marguerite Anglin. I'm Public Art Director with the city's Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy. We also shorten that to OACCE. We're looking forward to engaging with all of you who are artists that are maybe interested in applying for this Percent for Art opportunity. And I'll let my colleague Rachel introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Rachel Schwartzman. I am the project manager for this Percent for Art project, and I'm really excited to get it started with all of you.
Okay. So why don't we talk about some housekeeping. This presentation is being recorded and will be made available online for those who are not able to attend. And Rachel, are you advancing the slide?
Oops.
Okay.
We did that. Here we are.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. All right. So yeah, and so during the Q&A portion at the end, we're going to invite you to ask your questions. You can use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen, and you will be unmuted so that you can raise your question. You can ask your question. If you don't want to ask your question out loud, you can type your question in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. So we will also be combining the questions received verbally tonight with the written questions that we receive via email. We'll give you some deadlines and dates for all of that. But all of that information along with this PowerPoint presentation will be made available on our website at creativephl.org by Thursday, February the 9th. So this is our agenda tonight. We've talked about the welcome and introductions. We're going to go over the goals for this meeting. We're going to talk about the Percent for Art program and give you an overview of the city's Percent for Art program. And then we're going to go into some details about the project and the Blanche Nixon Percent for Art project, as well as the application process to apply as an artist. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the timeline and next steps, and then open it up for Q&A at the end. So the goals for tonight are several things we want to accomplish. One, we want to walk you through the Percent for Art process. Then we also want to provide an opportunity for you to ask questions that you may have about the process or the call for artists. We want to encourage local artists to apply to this opportunity and future opportunities. So if you've never applied to a Percent for Art project or a public art commission for the city, that this is an opportunity to just see what the city's process is and just be encouraged. You feel more empowered that you have more information you can apply for this project. And then also to provide assistance for those that need it. So if you have any questions, any guidance that you need, that's what we want to do tonight. So before we get started, just to get an idea of who is attending tonight, let us know by answering this poll. Have you ever participated in or applied to a City of Philadelphia Percent for Art project before? So a poll should pop up on your screen. If you can answer yes, you have, or no, this is your first time applying. And then if should be a submit button, if you can hit the submit button if it's there for you, and then we'll see what people say.
Looks like we've got 5 people have responded that this is their first time.
That's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful. You know, so the Percent for Art process, the city is ever evolving. So whether you've participated before or you're new, this meeting is going to be helpful for you to understand some of the changes if you've applied before, and also just in general, what's needed to apply for this project. So that's great. I'm glad we have some first timers here. So the mission of the Percent for Art program, the city's Percent for Art program, is to commission beautiful and enduring artworks which reflect the diversity of Philadelphia's residents and visitors, its rich cultural landscape, its many histories, and the variety of public spaces in Philadelphia's communities. And so city-funded construction projects trigger the Percent for Art requirement, which requires for new construction or major renovation that the city is funding and providing that has a budget of $1 million or more. The program requires that 1% of the overall budget is designated for a site-specific public artwork on that site. So the renovation of the Blanche Nixon Library creates an opportunity for site-specific public art with a budget of $150,000. So the Percent for Art commissioning process is a two-part competition. Part one is the submission of qualifications, and that's where we are now. And then part two is the semifinalist proposals phase. And we're going to talk very detailed about what those entail. So funding goes directly to selected artists who are responsible for the design, fabrication, and installation of the artwork with support from OACCE. And then community involvement is a vital part of the process. And it also includes representation on the Percent for Art committee, which every Percent for Art project has a committee of stakeholders, community members, city officials who are very closely following the project. And their goal is to help select the artists and ensure that the artwork reflects the community's voice. So as I mentioned, community participation is vital. It allows artists to create site-specific art that is a true and meaningful reflection of the people and the values of the local community, and making sure that the community's voice is reflected in the artwork. So the purpose of the community input is that it helps to establish the goals for the art project. The community's voice helps to inform the semifinalists about the community and respond to questions that the artist may have about what stories the artwork should tell, or what aspects of the community should be reflected in the artwork. And also community input helps to inform the selection of the winning Percent for Art project. So the Blanche Nixon Percent for Art committee consists of the following group of people: arts and culture administrators and leaders, staff and users of the library, a family member of Blanche Nixon, artists, the project design team, that is the architects and landscape architects who are renovating, providing the design for renovating the building and the site, the project user, community ventures, and also elected officials and community leaders of the Council District 3, as well as representatives from Rebuild and OACCE. So this is a typical schedule, which really what it's showing is that the typical Percent for Art process is a phase, multi-year process. And so we're currently in the orange section right here, which is community engagement and artist installation. And this lasts at least 8 months or more. And I want to highlight that with all projects, once we have an artist that is selected and we get out of the orange and into the blue, there is a phase called design development. And that's where the finalists will be working to conform the design and the concept to the technical parameters of the site, working really closely with our office and with the design team for the renovation to make sure that those parameters are met. And that's part of preparing for presenting to the Philadelphia Art Commission, which is required for all public artwork in the city. So that's the first 4 months after the artist is selected. And then the city's contracting process is quite long. It can take several months after the Art Commission approves the project. But the city can only contract with the artist after the Art Commission has approved the project. And then fabrication and installation is dependent on the selected artist's final schedule. And so that's why we have TBD there. And also it's important to note that all semifinalists will be asked to sign a terms of agreement form that confirms that they acknowledge the contracting, the design development, and all of that up front is part of the process for the artist selection. And so a sample of the terms of agreement form is available in the application on Submittable, and we'll be highlighting where it's located later on in this presentation. So throughout the city, there are a lot of examples of Percent for Art projects from over prior years. This is a sculptural project. And so we have a selection here of some sculptural works that have been commissioned through the city's Percent for Art program. which take a lot of different forms when you're talking about sculpture. So this project here is Weaver's Knot Sheep Bend. It's by Ball Noga Studio, and it's located on the Delaware River Trail. It's part of the improvements that were done there recently. And so Weaver's Knot and Sheep Bend are traditional names for a knot that's used to bind different thicknesses of rope. And then the spheres, this is actually a 21-foot tall sculpture with stainless steel spheres that range in size and are welded together to create the shape of the knot. And the knot acknowledges the history of textile production and sailing on the Delaware River, and also reflects how Philadelphians in industry intertwined to weave the fabric of community, person to person, one knot at a time. So this next sculpture here is MVP by Brian McCutcheon. And so the artist takes the traditional idea of a figurative statue and features a young female athlete in a pose that shows that she's about to make a decision in a game. And this is actually one of the first individual sculptures in Philadelphia of a young Black female, and represents only a handful of female figures in the city's public art collection. It sits on a low plinth where kids can really kind of get up close to it and see this figure that looks more like them than any other sculpture in the city. This next piece is called Object of Expression by Warren Holtzman. It's a stainless steel sculpture in the form of a lectern, and it invites impromptu performances or oration to visitors of the park. And the lectern reflects the musical history of the neighborhood and also references the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. is said to have made a speech on the former Hawthorne Recreation Center site at 13th and Christian, which is the next block over, back in 1965. This is Gargoyle Grouping by Peter Rockwell. This is a grouping of gargoyle faces that's on like a totem pole almost, and expresses a sense of playfulness in the faces of the statue. The sculpture turns the surrounding area into a splash fountain where water falls through the openings of the gargoyles' mouths. And then this last one is called Three Boys at Play. It's by Harold Kimmelman. It's a 3-figure sculpture that depicts kids with their hands clasped together and they're attached to a wall. And so this playful sculpture is the size of children and keeps with the theme of encouraging play at the playground. And so we wanted to just show a lot of different types of sculpture from over, the years, that just as a sampling of some of the works in the city's collection. I'm going to pause now before we go into more detail and see if there's any general questions so far just about the city's Percent for Art program.
There was somebody in the chat who seemed like they did have a question. So if that person wants to raise their hand, we can take it now.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we're gonna be getting into a lot of detail about this specific application and the process for Blanche Nixon, but if there's any general questions.
Okay, Tamara has her hand raised. Tamara, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. My apologies. I came in a little late, but I saw the slide that had, I think you had outlined the process, and I missed that slide, and I asked in the chat if I could get access to that slide again. And you said yes, and I just wanted to know how I could get access to that first slide.
The very first slide, well, all this slideshow is being recorded, and so it's going to be made available online, as well as any questions that are asked during this meeting. And also we're going to give a deadline for emailing us questions. So all of those things, the answers to those questions, and then this PowerPoint presentation are going to be made available online. And when we have the next steps at the end, we'll I think, I don't remember the date now. Is it the 9th that we're doing that, Rachel, from that first slide?
Yes, by the 9th.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thanks
for the question.
All
and
right.
It's good to see you again. I've come to your ones where you presented at City Hall. This is my first virtual one.
Oh,
so
great.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, I didn't see any other hands, so
Okay.
I'm gonna move us on, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk right now about the Blanche Nixon Percent for Art project in specific, and we'll start just with an overview of the goals of the project. So the goals of this project are to commission a site-specific public art sculpture that honors the life and legacy of Blanche A. Nixon, the community activist for whom the library is named. Another goal is to honor the history, culture, and diversity of the Cobbs Cree community through public art using materials that are appropriate and durable for exterior use. And the third goal is to reflect Blanche's likeness, humanity, warmth, and essence in the artwork. This is really a memorial to Blanche, and we want the sculpture to evoke Blanche for all of the people who didn't know her and did know her, and to inspire viewers to make a positive impact in their community as Blanche Nixon did. So here are some archival images of Blanche that we got from her family. And she was lovingly called Mom Nixon. She was really like a parent to not just her 6 children, but to the whole neighborhood and community. And just from reading testimonials and talking with people who knew her, it's clear how incredibly beloved she was as a member of this community, which is why the library was named after her. And the sculpture really should reflect that as well. She, as an activist, had many well-known achievements, numerous, including leading the Crisis Intervention Network and co-chairing the Southwest Philadelphia Interracial Mothers Council, as well as others. And in the call to artists, you can read more about Blanche's achievements and get to know her more. And I just wanted to share with you these quotes because I feel like they're really powerful in bringing her to life. So these came from community members who knew her. Someone said, when you look up the word caring in the dictionary, her picture should be right next to it. Words can't explain what this woman meant to me. She was the blueprint for our community. She helped raise me from 3 doors away with her loving heart. She kept us all in check. Never in my years have I met such a sweet, no-nonsense woman who was small in stature, but had the heart of a lioness. So to bring this woman and her character to life in this art project is really the main goal. Okay, so now Marguerite's going to talk a little bit about the specific location of where the sculpture will go.
Yeah, I'm going to just highlight some details of the site images that were provided in the call for artists. So this is a rendered site plan of the Blanche A. Nixon Cobbs Creek Library, which is located on a triangular lot in West Philadelphia. And it's where Cobbs Creek Parkway, Baltimore Avenue, and 58th Street converge. And so that the white kind of T-shaped form is the footprint of the building. And then you can see the landscape plan that actually this is provided by the landscape architect who has proposed these new upgrades for the site. And so the rebuild renovation project includes interior and exterior building upgrades at the library. And then the landscape improvements will include new seating and gathering spaces, a story loop, which actually, and you can't see my, I don't know if you can see my, but it's the walkway that goes all the way around the site. And that has different elements along there that speak to the story of the neighborhood. And then there's also an amphitheater area and play areas. And so the site for this sculpture will be near the corner of Cobbs Creek Parkway and Baltimore Avenue. And this is a prominent location on the site. It's a hub where you can see several walkways are meeting, and it's really on access to the main walkway leading up to the steps of the building. So the sculpture location is actually going to be framed by a new landscape planting buffer. So at the corner there, you can see that green triangle space. That doesn't exist yet, but it's going to be provided as part of the library renovations. And so Blanche's sculpture will welcome people to the library. And also we'll be able to create an engaging space near that kind of landscaped buffer area that is a destination unto itself. Next slide. So these are a few renderings from the architect. So this is a view looking back at the building at the Blanche Nixon Library. And this area here is this kind of amphitheater raised planted area where there's outdoor seating and a garden. Next slide. So this is a view looking toward the library on that main access pathway that I was talking about. And literally, if you're like standing right here in this rendering and you turn around, you would be facing the corner of Cobbs Cree Parkway and Baltimore Avenue, where the sculpture will be sited. And then here's just a close-up view of that corner where the sculpture will be going. You can see the green space, that triangular space that we call a buffer, because it's really helping to buffer all that the traffic. This is a busy intersection. So there's going to be a tree planted there, as well as landscaping. And then the red circle is showing this area on the path where the sculpture will be. And so artists will be encouraged to think about 360 degrees, how this sculpture can be situated so that people can experience it from all sides.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in now and go into some pretty close-up detail of the process, and hopefully a lot of your questions will get answered here, but if you have any others, just jot them down and we'll take the questions at the end. So the Percent for Art Commission is a two-part competition consisting of part one, which we're in right now, which is called the submission of qualifications, and part two, which is where 3 or 4 semifinalists who have been selected will create proposals. So I'm going to go through part one right now in detail, and just foremost, you should know part one is an online application that focuses on collecting information about the artists and their prior experience. So the first thing that you'll see is an online application via our platform that's called Submittable, is where you will go to submit your qualifications. It's a free platform, so you just have to create a profile for yourself. And in that application, you're providing demographic information, your artist statement, your resume, and you'll be responding to some short answer questions about this specific project, which I'll be sharing with you in a couple slides. And you'll also be uploading examples of your previously completed relevant artwork. And there'll be like an image identification guide there where you'll put in information about the artwork title, year, materials, location, and dimension of the art that you're sharing. I just want to add here that you can apply solo and you can also apply as an artist team. So there can be more than one person on a team together. So after you submit your application on Submittable, the questions and answers period. So artist questions and responses will be made publicly and available online. And that's what Marguerite was referring to earlier. So by February 9th, we'll be answering any questions that come up. And then semifinalists will be selected. So the Percent for Art Committee will review the applications, and 3 or 4 semifinalists will be selected based on the selection criteria, which I will go over in the next slide. I just want to highlight here that in part one, there are no design proposals happening. It's just sharing previous work that you've done and your demographic information. So the selection criteria that the committee will be looking at and thinking about when they look through your application are these things listed. So the capacity and demonstrated ability to create high quality monumental works of sculpture that are relevant to this public art opportunity and suitable for the public realm. Is there prior work that is engaging and evokes an emotional response from the viewer? Does this applicant have a connection to the artist, to the library or the Cobbs Creek community. You don't have to, but that's one of the criteria that will be considered. Will the artist or artist team reflect the diversity of the Cobbs Creek community? Does the application show a unique point of view, approach, or style of work? And the response of the short answer questions, do they demonstrate the artist's understanding of the goals and importance of this particular public art project? So these are all the things that will be considered when the committee is looking through your application. And these are the short answer questions that I mentioned, just to give you a sense of the kinds of things that we are valuing as important in this project that you would be speaking to. So question 1, what inspires you about Blanche A. Nixon, and why does this Percent for Art opportunity interest you? How has your public art positively impacted, inspired, and or educated diverse communities in the past? Connecting with children was very important to Blanche A. Nixon. In what ways can your process and or your completed work of art creatively engage youth? Do you have a personal experience or connection to the Cobbs Creek community, West Philadelphia, or the Blanche A. Nixon Cobbs Creek Library? And how would this connection lead to creating a successful work of public art? And lastly, why do you feel you are the best artist to be selected for this project? So that was part 1. So once the 3 or 4 semifinalists are selected, we will move into part 2. And that's where those 3 or 4 artists will be paid a stipend to develop a very specific design proposal that will be shared with the community. And I'm going to talk you through the process of part 2 right now. So the first thing that will happen is that the 3 to 4 semifinalists will attend a mandatory meeting to review the proposal guidelines and also to do a site visit at the library to get a sense of the place and space before starting their design. The next thing that will happen is we'll have our first public input meeting, and Marguerite spoke to how important community engagement is in this process. Community input and feedback, really, there's many touch points along the way where the community will have a voice in this process and inform and guide how this art ultimately looks in the end. So at the first public input meeting, the artists, the 3 or 4 semifinalists are going to hear directly from the community about what stories should be reflected in the artwork. And in this case, there'll be stories specifically about Blanche Nixon. The next thing that will happen is the artists will submit a proposal. So they will receive a $1,000 stipend, and the proposal will be very robust and will include many things, including visual renderings of the proposed design, a written narrative of the concept, a description of materials, fabrication process, maintenance needs, a project schedule, and a budget. So once the 3 or 4 semifinalists have created their proposals, they will have an opportunity again to touch back in with the community and share these proposals and receive feedback at that time. At this meeting, it's really more like a dialogue. So the artists are sharing, here's what I've come up with based on what I heard from you. And then the community is saying back what they see, what questions they have. And the artists will have one more opportunity to kind of tweak and revise their designs based on that feedback. And then there will be like the final presentation of their proposals to the committee. And that moves us to the last phase where the finalist is selected. So the final proposals are submitted and they reflect the community's feedback that they heard from. The committee will then hear all of those proposals on a long day of a meeting where we get to hear from all the artists. And on that final day, a finalist is selected by the committee. And then after that, the finalists will further develop their design to get it up to speed to present to the Philadelphia Art Commission for final approval before we can move into the installation process. So the online application form, I'm just stepping back now to part 1, which is where any of you would be if you decide to apply right now. Our online application form is on a platform called Submittable. And this is what it looks like when you would click onto the application for this project. If you were to click in through the Office of Arts and Culture website, you might land on this page where you would see listed different projects that we are currently listing. So you would just need to make sure you selected the Blanche A Nixon one, which is looks like with the red box around it at the bottom. And what you'll find when you get onto the submittable application is a description of the project overview. And then I just want to point out at the bottom, there are some links to really important documents for you to take a look at. So the first one is the call for artists, which goes into a lot more detail about all the aspects of the project, the site, tells a lot more about Blanche Nixon, and has all the details in it that you'll need. And then there are also links to see a sample percent for art semifinalist terms of agreement, which you should familiarize yourself with, as well as a sample public art contract, just to take a look at those, see what questions you have, and then we can, you can share those with us. This is a very detailed page of our timeline. I'm not going to read through all these things, but I just wanted to kind of give you a sense, as Marguerite shared, this is a multi-year project. It's looking like we're aiming to have this completed in the spring of 2025. And here we are tonight in the yellow at our artist information meeting. And I'll just point out a few important dates, mainly, namely the call for artists submission deadline, which of part 1, which is coming up on March 10th. By 5 p.m. And this timeline is also included in the call to artists if you want to look more closely at. But what you'll see on here are all the other things that I just talked through, the community input meetings, etc. So you can take a look at that. That was a lot of information. So we're going to pause here, and that's sort of the end of all of the bulk of what we're sharing in this presentation, and now is the time for you to ask questions. So you can raise your hand and let us know what you're wondering about.
And we have quite a bit of time, about at least 20 minutes or so for questions. So please don't be shy.
All right, I'm going to unmute. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name right. I've been.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi.
I have a question about the sculpture part. So there has to be a sculpture a part of this your package, basically.
So for part 1, this is just your submission of qualification. So you're going to include past work that you've done that's relevant. If you haven't done sculpture, but you're teaming up, which we definitely encourage and allow if you want to have a joint team with a sculptor. If you don't have that work, you know, then you would apply as a team. But we definitely want to see capacity for providing a sculptural work of art, which is the subject of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I see Tamara's hand.
Hi, yes. Hi. Is this a permanent sculpture? And will there be someone, could we possibly write into the budget if there are things elements to the sculpture that need to be maintained? Can that be written into the budget? Like, is this, like, so I guess that's two questions. It's a permanent sculpture, and is it possible to have, who would be maintaining the sculpture, and is there a budget outside of the 150 for that?
Those are two very, very good questions. So the first answer is yes, this is a permanent sculpture. It has to be site specific, permanent. We want to make sure that the materials are durable. And, you know, obviously it's going to be outdoors. It's going to be subject, you know, to the elements. So we want to see this thing in 50 years and beyond still there. And in terms of maintenance, once this sculpture is created, it will become part of the city's public art collection. And so this city has a very small budget to maintain all the artworks. So there's over 1,100 artworks in the city. So what we ask is, when we create new works of art, we ask the artists to make sure that they're doing things that are not maintenance intensive, right? So we don't want to be coming back every 6 months to apply a coating that just wears away, or we don't want to have to, you know, think about vandalism, think about, you know, people rubbing up against it. Like, you want to make sure that the materials are very durable so that we can make sure that it stays in good condition. In terms of the budget should be for first cost. So there's not going to be any additional funds in your budget for maintenance. But what we will ask is for the final artist will provide what the maintenance requirements are. We do ask for you to provide that also in the call for artists if you are a semi-finalist and you're at the point where you're submitting a proposal with a budget. You will, as part of your narrative, provide information about what the maintenance requirements are. And we walk the semi-finalists through all of this in more detail when we get to part 2.
I have one last question. In terms of collaboration, can there be multiple collaborators or multiple partners involved? So let's say if I had 3 different individuals.
Yes.
Applying, like a
Yes.
team, I guess it'd be a team.
Yeah, so right, so you would apply as a team. So the submittable application allows for you to indicate who's the lead artist, and then it gives you an option to drop down if you have other members of your team that you are applying with. We anticipate that, you know, so if there's other artists that you're applying with, you'll put those in there. We also anticipate that there could be engineers or a fabricator or some other entity. You may not know that at this point in time, but in terms of the design and the artists who are going to be providing the you know, the sculptural work and the actual concept, those should be listed as part of your team for this part 1 part.
Okay, and that's the one that's due March 10th.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. These are great questions.
It looks like we got a question in the chat here, so I'll just read that out from Ashia. Any recommendations for a recent graduate who is very excited for this opportunity, however, is also very inexperienced?
Well, that's a great question. You know, I'll answer that a couple ways. One, we definitely want to encourage people to, you know, if you're an artist, is there a mentor or a teacher or a, you know, individual that you look up to that is maybe in your sphere, or part of who has educated you, or part of who you've learned from, that might want to partner with you? And you could be an apprentice, or you could be, you know, a joint partner in the team. Also, we recognize that, you know, we have a desire for more local, more diverse artists to have the capacity to take on public art projects and feel comfortable applying. And so we actually have, we started last year a professional development program called Public Art, How to Start. And it's really for artists that may be more familiar with studio work or small works and would love to do public art, but haven't scaled up and don't know, you know, how do you put together a budget? How do you source materials? How do you handle community engagement? All these things that are very different in public art than they are from like studio art or gallery work. So we're going to be doing those sessions quarterly. we typically have an artist that is just sharing their experience. And so you'll be seeing some information coming out for the next program, which will be in the spring.
People are asking, Marguerite, where can they find information on the public art, how to start?
So you want to make sure that you are on our mailing list so that you will get our updates and information for when the next workshop is announced, but it will be this spring. And if you haven't, you can, I think Rachel or one of our emails is on the last slide for next steps. And so you can reach out to us and ask to be on our mailing list if you're not already.
Thank you. That sounds
Thank you.
great.
These are great questions. Thanks everyone for your questions so far.
Tamara, did you have another question, or that was just the hand is still
Oh,
up?
sorry, I didn't lower my hand. My
No worries.
my apologies. Actually, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
I think that because we're not in person and, you know, we're all on Zoom and we can't see everybody who's on Zoom, you know, I kind of would encourage anybody who's interested in like finding a partner or collaborating to put your email in the chat. I'm sorry, my 5-year-old is coming in the background. To put your email in the chat to, if you're looking for collaborating or you want to talk through ideas. I think I'm just throwing that out there that I'm going to share my information, and I encourage anybody else. I don't know if that's okay or if that's encouraged.
That's perfectly fine. That's a
Yeah.
great idea. Yeah, thank you for suggesting that. And certainly we'll see. I'm not sure if everyone's getting it. I think we might have had, and Rachel and I were talking about this before the meeting started, like, is there a setting on here? Can you guys see? So it might be a setting where if you put it in the chat, only the hosts and panelists, which is myself and Rachel, would see it. Which we need to fix that. It's supposed to be for everybody. So I even noticed, I'm noticing here and some folks, you know, put their mediums, but it only came to us, to the hosts and panelists. So we apologize for that. So if you put your information in, then we will share that information out.
Yeah.
To the chat.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And we'll do that. And do you mind just maybe one chat with a couple of these, Rachel? We got 2 people so far who put their information. Oh, several people. This is great. And again, we want to encourage this because we know, you know, even the most skilled sculptor doesn't do it on their own. I mean, they might be able to model it, but they still have to, you know, go to a foundry, or they still have to, you know, they at least need an engineer. You know, a sculpture is going to need a foundation. It's going to need some detailed drawings of the base. So it's not anticipated that one artist is going to be able to have all the skill sets that are needed to put together a sculpture. Okay, so we are getting some individuals that have put their information in, and Rachel is providing them out.
Yeah, I think we just got one more question. Ben, you're still unmuted, so go ahead.
Okay, cool. So for the most part, we're looking for the sculpture of that artwork that's gonna go in that spot designated in the Cobbs Creek and Baltimore Avenue.
Yeah, so this will be a figurative sculpture of Blanche Nixon. And it will be there on that area, on that corner, or close to the corner, where we've shown on the drawings.
Okay, so we're not doing no artworks or murals on the building, right?
No.
Okay.
Not as part of this opportunity.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, we can let you all go for the evening. We'll maybe have one last call. If you want to raise your hand.
The slide with your emails on there, just so we have your email.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yes.
No, it's okay.
Next steps. Let's do that. We have the next steps
And
up.
thank you so much for your time. This is awesome.
So here's our next steps slide. You can submit application questions to me by February the 2nd. And like Marguerite said, by the following week on the 9th, we will post all questions that have come up from anyone about this opportunity and the answers on our website, and also a recording of tonight's session. And you can find that at creativephl.org/%for-art. And you can go to the same place to apply. And from that spot, you'll be able to access the submittable application that I showed you, as well as the call for artists, where all of the details about the project will be written out for you there.
Yes, definitely. And thank you everyone for your time tonight, for joining us, for your thoughtful questions. We look forward to seeing some of you apply for this opportunity and for future opportunities, because we have these meetings for every time when we do a call for artists. So have a good night. We appreciate you and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.